Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Marisa Bludorn. I am your host. Welcome to Sweetheart. Before I say I do, I have some of my co-hosts in the house with me tonight, Miss BJ Martin, Snails No Shells.
Nails with no shell.
Dr. Lavon Shaw is in the house with us.
Hey,
The
hey.
coach. Oh, we got Kevin Long, the male's perspective. You know we got to have the men in the house. So I am excited.
Yes.
It's Friday night. It's date night. What are we doing here? We're some lonely folks. Where's our dates?
Well, at least we're productive.
It's still early. It's still
Right.
early.
No, we're each other's dates. How about that?
Yeah.
That's right, Kevin.
Each other, right? Oh my God. Oh my God. Well, we are talking about this month in Own It magazine, and as featured in Own It and Sweetheart Before I Say I Do, we're talking about this month. We're focusing on family. It's August. We're getting ready to end all of our vacations, and we're getting ready to transition. I don't want to rush us, but we're getting ready to transition into being back in school and all of that stuff. And what we're focusing on this month is the spillover effect. We want to bring awareness to and awaken us each in all these different areas about how situations can spill over. One situation can spill over into another one. And because on this show, we're talking about the love relationship, we want to focus on watching out for and bringing awareness for how work can spill over into that love relationship. When everything is great, so we're showing up great everywhere. We got a positive attitude, our language is nice, we're lovey-dovey and all that good stuff. But when things are bad on the job, sometimes we, not realizing it, sometimes we are realizing it and know that we're doing it because we feel like we can get away with it. We're allowing that stress to now infiltrate, and take control over our love relationship. And so I wanted to go around the room and just share your opening thoughts about today's subject in regards to, have you ever experienced having your work life, or even if you have like an altercation with a good friend, and now you're mad because good friend, and then that spills over into your love relationship. So we'll start with Miss BJ Martin. Share with us, have you ever experienced anything like that, and are you familiar with the term spillover effect?
I did not know that it was called spillover effect. I just know the effect of the spillage. I have experienced definitely getting into it with someone. That was close to me, and I just couldn't get it together. And I did have an attitude, and I brought the anger to the love relationship. Yes, I have. I didn't mean to, I really didn't. I couldn't get it together. I was so angry. I could not get it together. So now I'm kind of taking it out on, my lover. You know what I'm saying? So I have experienced that as job, not so much, but dealings with other people. Yes, I have.
Mm-hmm. Well, the spillover effect, just to let you know, is a psychological term. It deals with workplace. So it really focuses on, but like I said, a lot of the things that are happening, they cross-pollinate. So we look at it in psychology, in the workplace, we look at it, the spillover effect is like when a boss or a manager has something going on at home, and they bring it into the office and they take it out on their subordinates. So in this case, it's still that spillover happens no matter what relationship it is. So just like you said, because we're not aware, and the whole point of this show is really to bring awareness so that we be more intentional with our behavior, exercise more self-control, right? So that we, what's the purpose of that? So that we have a better life, so that we have a better life. The more that we're aware of the things that we're doing, the more that we're able to control or regulate them. So, Kevin, have you had any?
Oh, well, yeah, certainly. I mean, outside of the normal stresses that you have on a particular job and what the job requires, you have had managers who just changed the whole vibe of the office. They have problems at home or whatever it may be, but they bring that into the office, and it really you can really feel it, and it comes across, and people are affected by it. And sometimes it can go on to a point where you start carrying a certain attitude, like, I'm sick and tired of being around this kind of foolishness, and you do bring that home. I know, and there are other ways that you can also bring it home as well, because, for instance, I've always been a computer geek. I've always loved computers, always been into them. One of the reasons why I got into IT. And one of the things that I know is sometimes you can have a problem on the job, and somebody who codes, after a while, sometimes when you can't figure a problem out, you may leave it alone and come back to it. But I'm the kind of person that it will nag me and nag me. And when I come home, that's where I go. Instead of spending time with my woman, sometimes I'd go over her house and take my computer with me, sit down at her kitchen table, and I'm still trying to figure it out. You know what I'm saying? And because that's just the way I work sometimes. There's some things that I just have to stay on it. And that does interfere with her, because she feels like, you're not spending time with me. And I said, just give me a few minutes. And then a couple minutes may take, 45, an hour. And she feels like, and she told me every time, like, you're cutting into my time. I never thought of it that way, cutting into her time. I just felt like, we're just hanging out, But it really was. She looked at it as our time together. And I was cheating her out of that time. So definitely I can understand how you can bring it home in more ways than the obvious, because you can get stressed out because of your job, but you can also bring it home in the sense of you just sometimes may be a workaholic and it's just what you do. So I can see how that can affect relationships in two kinds of ways.
You know what I was just thinking about? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just thinking, and the person that I got into it with, they probably had a bad day at work. It could have been some spillage going on with them at work, and I didn't know. Right. So this was making us more aware of, of what's going on. Yeah, go ahead, Marisa.
And Maya Angelou says, when we know better, we should do better, right? So it's all about, see, the real deal in the love relationship, and y'all, you know what I feel about it. It is not complicated. I don't care what anybody says, and you can argue me from 6 ways to Sunday. It's not complicated. Why is it not complicated? Because now that you're aware that it's possible that someone else could be having a bad day, now all you have to do is be conscious of that and make a simple effort to make them a priority and say, hey, I know I'm got. And what you do is you check yourself before you go into the house, especially if you know you're riled up. Check yourself, because at some point we got to learn. We got to have situations, but we got to learn from those situations. And the learning curve of that is what? The work to change your attitude and behavior. Your behavioral responses. You have control over that. So it's interesting because we have to learn one another's love languages. And I know, Dr. Shaw, you get ready to tap on this, because I can see you ready to tap in.
I'm telling you, she lights up.
So Kevin, you shared that your partner said it's infringing on our time. Totally correct, because the spillover effect is you already left your job. Now what's happening is when you pulled out that laptop, you spilling over into her life, right? Yep. Spilling over into her time. That's why it's called the spillover effect, because it didn't stay in its own place. It spilled over into some place it did not belong. Dr. Shaw, I'm passing it over to you.
Woo, all this is great. So I I want to talk about the after effects of the spillover. So, being intentional, I had to learn to be intentional and not do this, especially when we coach couples about relationships. The spillover when you're complaining to your friend about your friend, or better yet, the best example I can give us, when you're complaining to your parent about something your lover did or something your friend did, but then you and your friend and you and your lover kiss and make up. Well, your parent is still mad that this person offended their child. So you're like, why are you being so rude? Why are you being, well, you said this and you said that. Well, they're still stuck in the spillage. And you all have healed and moved on. That's why you have learned, or I have learned, to be intentional and not go in and just dump on somebody what that person did. I just like, okay, wonder what happened here. And God, show me if I made a mistake, and how to fix it, how to, repair it. Because I am a big person about friendships. I have to process what I'm about to say because, like, do I want to lose this friend? And it's not worth it. It's not worth it. So sometimes
It's
I
not.
just like, okay, you have to be intentional. You have to be intentional about what comes out, because when it comes out,
That's it.
out of the abundance of the heart does the mouth speak. What? That was in your heart? That came out your mouth? That was in your heart? So that's why you have to be intentional about what you say.
Yeah. And the spillover effect can happen, it can happen a lot, especially you, Kevin. You talked about being a workaholic. And that's the one thing about my journey. The one thing that I'm thankful was the fact of my level of self-awareness, just always being one who sits back and assesses behavior. That's why I loved human behavior. That's why I went into psychology, because I always say, well, why would someone do that? Or why did they do that? And understand why they did it. And then also to not only understand it from one point of view, but from both sides or multiple points of view, because everyone has something to add to the table. Everyone has value. And to discount that value is almost to discount something that can broaden your experience, right? To that can offer you different ways to enjoy life. So when it comes to your partner, it's important for you to know yourself, but to also get to know them. The 5 love languages. Remember, we talked about the 5 love languages. I'm going to grab that real quick. That's what I keep looking at. Is words of affirmation, right? So sometimes the spillover effect is when you get upset and the words you're saying are not very positive words of affirmation. They're kind of negative. And if a person is big on words, you're hurting them, you're stabbing them, and things like that. So it's important for you to not only know about your own behavior, it's also know how your partner communicates and likes to be communicated with. Quality of time, we talked about that. Spilling over robs that quality of time, because now you've not made your partner a priority. So guess what they feel like? They feel neglected. What happens? What's the results of feeling neglected?
Well, I know that it's almost like, I don't know if these two are comparable, but it's almost like rejection. It's one thing for somebody to reject you outright. It's another thing for someone to use nonverbal cues to reject you. And sometimes I think that in either case, you feel the fallout of I'm feeling rejected. So a lot of time, and looking back, I can see how there were many mistakes that I made because I didn't think of it in those terms. What happens is many times is we as human beings become patternized. We're creatures of habits, that we tend to fall into certain ways we do things and patterns that we continue to execute regardless of what a particular situation is. Some people have static personalities, and some people have more dynamic mentalities. Many of you seem like you have dynamic mentalities, which means that you're not static in how you adjust to different environments, different people, different thoughts, different ideas. Sometimes a lot of people are not like that. They're static. They go to work, they come home, they do this, they do that, and it just follows the same pattern without. And maybe there is some time for their children and their partners, but a lot of times you don't want your relationship to be patternized. This is Wednesday night, so this is our thing. You want it to be dynamic. You want it to be, have that flexibility to change and evolve and alter itself as the situation dictates. And a lot of times that's what happens. We become what's called in psychology, they call it fixed action pattern. It's just fixed ways that we do things and we get stuck in it,
And some people like that. So you gotta look at what is it, what's a value point to them. Like, so some people like having a routine schedule. So
when I say static, it's a little more than just routine. It becomes a lifestyle of beyond just routines. We all have routines in one way or another, but I won't say it's a psychosis, but it's a way that people don't want to change is the point I guess I'm trying to make. There's a difference.
Okay. So that's me. You mean being stubborn. Sitting there with
don't want to change. Things the way they are.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? But at the same token, you get what you get, right? If you don't want to change, you can't get upset because because someone leaves you. You can't get upset. Like, so when we talk about neglect, you can't get upset if your partner goes out and cheats on you, because you cannot neglect it. The scripture is even clear. The Bible says it's so important for you to come together in intimacy. He says you got to come, unless you are in prayer and fasting, you got to come together in intimacy on a regular basis, lest you be tempted outside the relationship. So it's imperative. And this is another area where couples neglect, especially the partner who's not sexually inclined. They're not really into it for whatever reason. It's not a priority for them, but the partner who that is a prior, intimacy is one of their love language, because the other love languages, I'll read them off so that everyone gets all five. And then I'm going to jump to Miss BJ and then Dr. Shaw. These are the five love languages, and in communication and that spillover can affect you performing well in these areas of responding to your partner. Words of affirmation, quality time, acts of service. And I really like acts of service. I didn't realize that. Physical touch is important for some people, and receiving gifts. These are the five love languages. This is the way that you communicate to your partner and make them feel good and make them feel high in value. And then guess what it does? It simply makes everyone happy. You hear the word simply? It's simple. It's simple. It's simple. It's simple. Miss BJ, you're up.
You know what? I think it'd be a good idea for us to go to commercial break and then we can speak on this.
You want to do that? Talk to them about our sponsors.
Let's do it. Yeah, let's give a shout out to our sponsors for tonight's show.
We will do first up, Dr. Shaw is in the house. Thank you, girl, for sponsoring us tonight. I love you, Dr. Shaw, because you talk about the needful thing. But I want to give a shout out to our designer of that commercial, which is Miss BJ Martin. And so, BJ, if you don't mind sharing with folks how they can have something like that specially done for them if they're in business or they want to promote any kind of event or activity.
Okay. Yeah, so you can DM me. I'm on Instagram under MS underscore BJ Martin. On Facebook, you can DM me under BJ Martin. You can hit me up on my website, www. I am Ms. BJ Martin. I'm everywhere. I'm on Linktree too. Linktree, LinkedIn, Ms. BJ Martin.
There you go. Dr. Shaw, talk to us about the importance of making sure our partner feels loved. And the importance of even though you're going through how you have to self-regulate to make sure that you're not spilling that over, that negativity, that negative vibe to our partners.
So I have a quick story to share. I can always do a good story. So I'm a widow, but I was going on a date with my husband. We were scheduled dates, but I was having a horrible day. But I knew we had to go on this date because we needed to spend quality time together. Because of my bad day, I flew out the house and we were halfway to our destination. And I'm like, I forgot my phone. And I am a workaholic too, Kevin. I take my phone and my computer everywhere. So he said, I can turn around. And I said for the first time, no. I want to be in the moment. I don't want to be looking at the phone. If something happens to the kids, if they see I'm not answering, they will eventually call you. So no. And he just looked and he was like, you feel okay? But I really wanted him to know, regardless of the day I had, I wanted to be there for him. And we have to be, and I don't know why I'm stuck on the word, but we have to be intentional when you get in a relationship, when you're trying to get to know somebody, and we're doing the interview and stuff. But if you looking at your phone, wondering who's calling, and immediately just they're gonna think that the other person on the phone is more interesting. You don't really want to be there. So even when we turn our phones down, we still have a tendency to pick it up, look at it, put it down. So even now, instead of vibrating, I have the flashlight. It'll light up. I'm like, well, who is this? I want this. No. So you have to be in the moment, and you need to put it down anyway to get to know who you are. Because as you're getting older, as you're maturing, your life is changing, your desires are changing, your wants are changing, you're improving. So you need to know who you are. Yes.
Yeah.
Again, yes, you don't want to be left behind, so you need to put the phone down and do some research for yourself. Even with the 5 love languages, you need to buy yourself a gift every now and then. The words of affirmation to yourself. How handsome you are, how beautiful you are. The physical touch, just go get a massage. If you don't want somebody touching your body, get your feet done, get your toes done. Get reflexology, because the reflexology is the inside of your organs are in your hands and your feet. Do the study, do the research, and just from being touched.
Yeah.
You have to know this, and couples are shocked. I'm a foster parent, and so I've worked with infants to 21 years old. There are infants who pass away because of failure to thrive. Failure to thrive is the lack of touch. Marriages are dying because they failure to thrive because of the lack of touch. Holding hands, simply holding hands, can save some marriages.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You're gonna think I'm crazy, but me and my ex-husband, we always held hands, even driving.
That's not crazy.
We went to sleep. No, because he's my ex. That's crazy. But when we went to sleep, we started off in a lock cuddle. And then we would break away. As we fell asleep, then we would break away. What he would always do was wipe my hair out of my face. All of that affection, is critical. And talking about being left behind. If you don't show up to your relationship, if you allow the spillover effect to infiltrate your relationship, to impact your performance inside that relationship, you will be left behind. That person is watching you. Your partner is watching you to see how you are showing up. They're assessing you. I did it myself. I sat back. I stopped complaining. I stopped arguing, and I started watching. I started watching to see if the things that I talked to you about in all of the communications that we had, are you addressing them? Do you have them as a high value? Are you concerned about not doing them and the results you would get, meaning that you would lose me? I sat back and I assessed. If you are not careful, you will be left behind. You'll wonder why the person ghosts you or went in a totally different direction. You'll wonder why they're not concerned about you not showing up. You'll wonder why they don't care that you're a workaholic. It's because they have left you right where you are, and they've moved on in their heart, either mentally, emotionally, or eventually physically. Mentally, they're going to leave you. And so you have to say to yourself, what's the value of this person in my life? Is this person valuable enough to me that I will not just do anything, but I will do anything to make sure that they're secure? And that means become more aware of yourself. The better person you are for you is the better person you will be in showing up inside the love relationship. Kevin, you have any remarks?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest problems is the way that men are socialized. You talk about the sense of having that self-awareness. A lot of times men are not actually measured by that, because a lot of times that's how you define who you are. That's how you set your trajectory of where you're going. A lot of time men are not socialized that way because we're measured by how we perform. And in the book that I'm working on right now, I'm getting into why a lot of times men are socialized the way they are and the effects that it has on relationships because of how we're socialized. And a lot of times men, and some, oh goodness, you were talking about something, you said something earlier, affirmation. A lot of times men don't have the same type of affirmation that a lot of times women do, because we're socialized that we have to stand on our own. We have to learn to pull ourselves up, and we have to go out, especially if we have children and we've made children, because a lot of times men make children just on a whim, and now they have the responsibility, but yet they never had the development. And I'm talking about the spiritual development, the maturation that it takes to commit to raising a child. A lot of men don't have that. And the thing about it is, men don't have a place to find the type of affirmation that reaffirms masculinity on a broader scale. They don't have that. And a lot of times that's what happens to a lot of our young boys, especially when they come from broken homes, that growing up, they don't get that affirmation. The only affirmation is performance, 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 performance. How a man performs is how a man, and when I say perform, I mean, does he hold a job? Does he pay for his kids? Does he do these things? And that's becomes the measure of man. And we have to understand that men are a lot more complicated than that. They need a lot of the things that women have amongst themselves that men need to begin to develop in order to affirm the things that need to be affirmed in masculinity so we can create the type of men who do what is necessary to meet the obligation of children, relationships, and other things. But it's just the way we're socialized, and we have to begin to work on that.
Mm-hmm.
You said a lot, and our men need a lot of help. Our men need a lot of help because
They do.
as the head goes, so does the body. And you know that's always going to be my position because I was a daddy's girl.
Me too.
Yeah, I was a daddy's girl, and I know the impact men have on the strength and the success rate of their family. When the men show up, the family is strong and vibrant. Our communities are strong and vibrant, and this is dear to my heart. That's why this conversation, I'm trying to be very light and very easy with it. It's no joke for me because the love relationship really, really impacts our world. When the couple is happy and flourishing, you have happy and flourishing homes. You have happy and flourishing communities. You have happy and flourishing job environments. Why? Because the people as a whole are happy. Things are in working order. Things are in the right place. This is not a joke. And like I said, it's and I'm not being unrealistic about it. I really am not. This is not complicated. It's called having reverence and respect for one another. It's just that simple. It's saying, I don't want to hurt you. And so I want to make sure I do the things. I want to make sure I'm healthy and whole so that when I come to love you, I can love you from a healthy and whole place. If both partners are thinking and doing like that, they're both showing up that way. If we keep saying it's complicated, what the book say? As a man thinketh, so is he. So when we keep saying things are complicated, things are we learned this. Well, if you learn that, then you can learn this. Okay, so it's not complicated, and we got to begin to change the wording that is in our favor, so that as we think, we begin to have what is good, healthy, and holistic for us all. Not just for the women to have a man that does all of this, not for a man that has a woman that does all of this, but so that we have it together, so that our children are healthy, that we are now breeding a healthy society, and that we can have a little alleviation of all of this dysfunctionality. Because I don't want to be bothered with the dysfunctionality. No one wants to be bothered with the dysfunctionality. We want healthiness. We want to be healthy. We need a break. You look at some of the people and they look so worn down and beat down. When you look at relationships that are not in good standing, the man looks a mess and the woman looks a mess. The kids look a mess. Everybody looking a mess. Am I right or am I wrong?
You're right.
I agree.
You're right, and it's dear to my heart. I'm being good about it. I'm trying not to sound like.
Let me tell you, I know that, and understand this, Marty. You and I don't disagree on the idea of simplicity because I know exactly what you're talking about. What makes it complicated is how do you unlearn what you've learned. That becomes where people get in this fog because, again, how do you undo what you've been taught to do? And it's hard. You're right. It's simple. I don't disagree with that.
I say this, the way that I don't overwhelm myself with everything that I have going on is instead of trying to look at everything at one time, just do one thing at a time. Just change one thing. And just be okay with saying, I'm getting there, right? I'm not perfect. Sometimes I have the foulest mouth. And I always Because if it's passionate to me, I can't do anything, but I can fuss. I can fuss and it won't hurt nobody. But I, when it's too big and I sense it's going to overwhelm me, I'm good and I'm content with just changing one little thing. If my bank account says I need to eat like beans, I'm not trying to go out and have a feast. I'm going to eat the beans. There's going to be a time when I can eat like a feast again. That's self-regulation. And so self-regulation says, hey, take it one step at a time. No one is perfect. Don't beat yourself up. Don't try to run and rush and make everything perfect. A big thing that men have a challenge with is y'all have the damsel in distress syndrome, where you always want to save a woman. And if you see a woman who doesn't need saving, you don't know what to do. Some of y'all don't know what to do with a woman who knows what she already knows what to do and is already ready to bring something to the table. So then you feel inadequate because now this woman tries to get, well, you almost knock off your nose to spite your face because God now placed in front of you something that can help you.
That's right.
Scripture says
that's how we're socialized. Again, that's why it's like that. Just what you said.
But okay, so now in the conversation, it should be that now that we are aware of this, I can I can now start self-evaluating, right? Look at yourself and start saying to yourself, hey, you know what? This is a blessing, you know? Right. And you know what I had to do because I got married and I was with my husband at the age of 19. So, you know, at 19, you already know I'm fiery. You already know, Kevin, right? Right? Fiery Marisa. So I would come when we would hit heads, I would come, blah, 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 da, 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 da. Well, you know what was happening to me? I got saved in my early 20s. I got saved. I gave my life to Christ. And when I gave my life to Christ, I started reading the book of Proverbs and Psalms. Those are the books that I went to. Everybody said, read the Gospels. No, I just went right over to Proverbs. I was like, it would be my militant butt that would go to Proverbs, right? Because Proverbs, if you read it, it's tough. It's tough, but it is the way of life. And I'm high, even as boisterous and as strong as I am still very high in compliance. I want to do the right thing. I want to be under the right leadership. I want my leader to do the right thing. I want to be associated with those things that are of excellence, order, decency, that are honorable. We all want that. We want to be proud. And what I had to do was go to God and I had to begin to really, really pray. Pray about my lack of patience. Pray about the shortcomings I had. I had to pray. And then I had to start using self-regulation. So when you pray and ask God, we also need to do some work ourselves. So we need to self-regulate. So when we come out of prayer, we don't just put it all on God. God says, okay, you cast your cares upon me and learn of me. He says, learn of me. So we have to learn the right way of doing things. And as I opened myself up to be transformed, to be changed. I allowed the changing. I allowed the humbleness. I allowed the humility. I allowed the teaching. Even when sometimes I felt like I was right, I asked God to hold my tongue, shut my mouth, keep me still. Even when sometimes I'm boiling over, I had to reteach. I had to do that myself. I had to because just like Dr. Shaw said, I had to be intentional. If I want different, I have to do different. And in order to do different, I had to think different. I had to have all of that. So I say that to say, if one person can do that, if we want better, we really, really want better, we can all do it. And it just starts by stop trying to be perfect. Stop trying to save somebody else. And when God sends you someone who has it, be humble enough to say, whoa, what a blessing that God would honor me with a woman who's got it together. I don't have to stress myself out. I don't have to go through all the drama and the trauma. receive the gift. Receive the gift of what God has in front of you. And it's a process. I didn't get where I am today overnight. It didn't happen. And I still screw up. Did you hear me say? I still screw up. I still screw up. But I'm thankful that God is merciful. I'm thankful that I can get up in the morning, I could breathe again, and I could start the day all over. I'm thankful that I have the ability and humbleness to say, you know what, I'm sorry. I was out of control. I'm wrong. I learned that through the years. With that ex-husband, I learned how to say, I'm wrong. I learned how to say that with my children. I'm wrong. And it's hurt. It hurts when you have to say that. But when you get there, I can tell you today, I'm so freaking free. I'm free. I'm free. But it's a process. It's a process. But
Absolutely.
one bit at a time. Don't try to just, I'm gonna be changed overnight. It's not. It's not. It's an evolve. It's a discovery process, and it's an evolve. As you discover, you evolve. You get better. Then you discover something else, you evolve, you get better. It's a step-by-step process. But we got to get our men to get from talking about the trauma and the lack and start saying, let me move. I recognize the trauma, I recognize the lack, I got to do something to move forward.
Marisa, if I can share, Michael, when we met, we were dating and having a great time, and all of a sudden, for like maybe 24 hours, broke up with me. And I was like, what is going on? And I was blown. One, no one needs me. No, you don't want me. So we sat down, and I found out he was a wrestler. And he said, you don't need me. I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, you have your own job, your own car, your own house, your own career, your own ministry. You don't need me. And I said, no, I don't need you. I want you. And I want to be with you. And that blew his mind. And we grew from that. And we grew together. And we were married maybe 3 years before we had our first fight. And when we finally had a fight, he was leaving. I'm like, where are you going in the middle of a fight? And he said, I'm going to the batting cage. I'm like, no, we need to sit down and discuss this and how can we fix this? We don't go to the batting cage and we don't do silent, radio silence for 2 or 3 days or 2 or 3 months. We talk it out, So again, for Kevin, that was a learned behavior from his first marriage of just not talking. I'm like, that's not, if something happened to one of us in the middle of not talking, we would lose our minds. So no, you talk it out. You talk it out. So you unlearn those bad behaviors. And I'll say this, when we're taught some things from our daddy's girl days, the best example I can give you is for OGs, when you're walking with me, if I'm walking on the outside of the street, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to see you again. So I was on a date and I was on the outside of the street and I was in my head, I was like, this is it. This is a one-time deal. It was so funny because he immediately grabbed me. I didn't say anything. He grabbed me. He said, you should be on this side. And I was like, oh, okay.
He picked up that energy, girl. He picked up that energy. He knew he was getting ready to be iced.
Like, let me say this. I'll say this, though. One thing you said is that I don't care who the man is. I don't care what the man is. If a man ever, and I'm telling this is coming from a man, so you can't say you weren't told. I don't care who you are. If a man ever believes that a woman doesn't need him, believe me, that's going to hit him inside, and it's always going to be there. And anytime anything goes wrong in that relationship, you best believe that's going to be his fallback for why he makes the decision to do some of the things that he does. A man never wants to hear that. Never, 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 never. I want to always believe that you need me, whether you do or not. It's not the point. Be independent, but do you need me? Because when I feel like you're at a point where you love me, you want to be with me, but you don't need me, that is such a poison pill that a lot of women don't understand. It's like, you just meet a woman, you start dating her, and the first thing she got to come up and tell you, I'm independent. That's a killer to me. I don't want to hear that. I want to get to know you. What is it that you need that maybe I can bring to the table, and what is it that I may need that you can bring to the table, so that we have that cohesiveness. But when you're telling a man that I don't need you,
so I just want to be clear.
You created a fault in that man that's always going to exist.
Me? Well, let me be
That's
clear.
straight up.
But let me be clear with what I said to Mike.
I'm not putting you down for what you said. I'm just saying.
No. I just want clarity. When I did say that I didn't need him, but I wanted him, I was saying that because he was used to dating women who needed him to rescue them. Not because they loved him, but to rescue them.
Needy.
He came to me. He didn't need to rescue me. He trust me. He was my king. He was my bishop. He was my lover. And he had the last say in everything we did. But I need you to understand, when I said I didn't need him to rescue me, I wanted to be with him simply because I wanted to be with him, not because he was scooping me up and doing that. So I need you to know that.
So I want to share with you as listening. She didn't say she didn't need him. He said to her, "You don't need me." So
right.
what has to happen?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because if he has a sense of whether or not she has anything that may fulfill him or say, this is why I need you in my life. Even if he's the one that recognizes it first. He's looking at things that say, huh?
Kevin, listen. So there's a preset mindset here that we're talking about. So, and it has nothing to do with the woman. It has everything to do with the man. And what I'm saying to you, and hear this objectively, is you've already preconditioned your mindset to say, now, if you had a woman that came in and she says, oh, yeah, I'm independent, blah, 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 blah. She's telling you who she is. So you got to watch your triggers. Remember all about self-awareness.
Hold on.
Well,
I hear what you're saying, Marty, but I don't think you're understanding me. I know it was him who said it. I wasn't putting the blame on her. I'm not putting the blame on the woman. Understand the sensitivities of men. Just like we talked earlier about there are two ways you can feel rejection. Well, understand in this case is the same way. Because a man can look at a woman and see all of those things that she has going for him, and he may say to himself, well, she doesn't need me, because what is the indication? Because
Kevin, hear me out completely. Just wait, let me say this to you. So if the man, let's say if the man has a trigger of not feeling needed, nothing that a woman, she may not even say it verbally, because she didn't say to him verbally that he was not needed. It was her just being her that told him that he was not needed. So if that's the case, she is not saying any, she's just being herself. So so hear me out though. This is why I said that's a precondition. You're already conditioned to being triggered that you're not wanted, you're not valued if you don't see yourself. That's what you are seeing. That's what the man is seeing himself as, not being needed. The woman is not saying that. So everybody has, remember we talked about the 5 love languages. This is male and female. This does not have, it's not a gender assignment. It's male or female. So acts of services is needs, right? Needed or not needed. Because acts of services is where you're wanting so your love language is acts of service. So that man has it, that's one of his major love languages. He got to feel like he's needed. If that woman is a woman who is independent naturally, that's her natural trait, right? she she's not intentionally sending off a signal to say I don't need you, and she's not verbalizing it. He's observing it, right? So he is the one with the preset condition that that counts him out. He x's himself out. So
Yep.
if that's the case, then it's that particular man's job to now rectify that, because what he's doing is he's self-sabotaging. He's he's cutting off an opportunity because of his own preset mindset. So that's what I'm saying to you. I'm saying to you that this is a part of where you have to be self-aware. And if you're self-aware and you're really being honest with yourself, and self-awareness and introspective work is not easy work, because you have to own it. You have to own your stuff, because we don't know. It's just like you say, like, and I don't want to say you said it, but I've heard men say, I can't read your mind. Well, guess what? We can't read your mind. So we don't know that that's a preset condition that you have in your thinking pattern, because not all men not all men want to be needed. So it's not all men that want to be needed, because some men are thankful that they don't end up with a needy woman. They don't have that damsel in distress, disorder. Or need to rescue. They don't have a need to rescue. They're looking for a partner that's going to come along, and they're ready and they're preset for that woman to come up and do her part. So it's a trigger that happens when they see a woman, and that love language of acts of service being needed is absent from that woman. But it's not something that can't be addressed. And it can be addressed through open communication and honesty, and just being vulnerable about a truth. Like, I need to feel like I'm needed. That's all that has to be said, because I'm a very independent woman. I'm very but my needs may be different than the needs that a man may think he needs to be. Like, I don't need you to, I know how to use a power drill. I know how to use a little giant. But what I would want you to do is rub my back. I would want to lay on your chest. I want you to relax and calm me. I want you to make me laugh. Those are my specific needs from my personality type. So it's not that I don't need. It's my needs are different than what you may assume or you may be used to providing as a need.
Right, and that's what you were saying, being self-aware. You need to know.
Women, a lot of times, women tend to want to. They don't understand how, and I understand everything you're saying clearly, with no ambiguity. But it's all about, again, how does she affirm her man, and how does he affirm her? And let me tell you something. As a man, I've never seen any woman that I've ever been with who didn't just crave attention. The more you shower on her, the more she loves it, the more she wants it. She just enjoys it, because men tend to meet the in a lot of ways the affirmation of what women need. But at the same time, when you flip it, women tend to support their man, but a lot of times the support, and I don't want to go too far because it's going to get too deep into a different subject, and I don't want to go there. But we have to learn that there's certain ways that women need to understand. How do I affirm my man, and how do I affirm his needs? And that's the one thing that I see. That's why I'm writing the book that I'm writing, because a lot of times I think there's women lack a great deal of understanding about the needs, feelings, affection of men, and the men are not getting met with what it is they need. We're missing out, and we're deficient. And that's why the kind of men a lot of times women get, that's because that's what's been produced. And that's what we continue to produce. And you have a lot of women out here who are not finding the kind of men they want. There's never been a woman that I have ever dated that I have asked. I said, have you ever in your life loved a man the way you imagined it in your mind? And every single one of them told me no. And I'm saying, you're with somebody you say you love, but yet you have yet to meet the level of love that you imagine in your mind. Why? Because you're not producing the kind of men that bring that kind of love.
And I think we
I'm not trying to get huffy with y'all. I mean,
no, you are passionate about these needs. I love it. I love the passion. You go ahead, Kevin. That's right. You stand firm on your beliefs and you write your book, and we're here to support you. We love it. Bring it. Bring it. But now I'm just saying, we're going full circle again. You talked about the 5 love languages. It's important to be self-aware about what you need, right? What you need first. You need to know what you need, Kevin.
I just don't. I mean, I agree with those things what you're saying. Sometimes I just want us to be careful because those things can sometimes be a little anecdotal, and that's what concerns me sometimes. Because we go as men, we go deep, just like women do. Everybody's an ocean, but a lot of times we have to learn how deep we can go. And find out how deep the water actually is a lot of times.
Right. And so that's why it's important for you to know what you need and important for you to take the time to know what your mate needs. Be intentional with that. A lot of times we aren't. Some people, they like, well, I got my needs met. I'm good. It's a lot of selfishness still going on. And you don't take the time to, a lot of people don't even know what 5 love languages is. What is that? You have to be, we're trying to love, but we don't even know how. We don't even know how. And I think that the 5 love languages, I think that's a start. Yeah, I think that's a start. That should be a blueprint. Let's start here.
A start. Okay.
Right.
Definitely.
And there's plenty of books on the 5 love languages. Mm-hmm. The key is creating a and then we're going to close out because we, believe it or not, we've already up on this hour. Mm-hmm. we're gonna do a round robin and close out. But the key is, at a certain point in our lives, we have to create a safe place to be vulnerable and transparent and non-judgmental, and we have to agree and commit to that. And we have to be careful because these are our partner's emotions. These are the truth of who they are. We want them to be safe. We want them to be in an environment where they can be truly themselves. The love relationship is the most important relationship outside of our relationship with our Creator. I say Heavenly Father, He's my Father. But for those who look at it from a different spiritual perspective, it's your relationship with the one who created you. That's the first. The second relationship is the love relationship. Because you come together and you become one, you become entangled with each other. You have got to make it a priority to give that person an environment and an atmosphere that is conducive of and highly supportive of vulnerability. If you are going to really fuse this relationship together, if you're really going to have the opportunity to have a fulfilling and loving and passionate relationship, you have got to be vulnerable and transparent with one another. I always say you have to be best friends. You have to be, have to be, because it's important. This is where all of the stuff comes out. You want your partner to be able to share any and everything with you so that you can go through things together and strengthen your relationship, the foundation of your relationship, so that it's unshakable. And so I'm going to let my co-hosts have their closing remarks. Miss BJ, you start. Dr. Shaw, you next. And Kevin, you finish us
out. My closing remarks. I always go back to just learning how to love yourself first. That self-love is so important. Even before you even go into the love languages, learn how to love yourself first. Let's start there, and then get into the love languages, and then Then when you learn what you need, and your needs and what you don't like, what you need, what you don't need, then you come with that other person, y'all come together, and now you set the intention to find out what they need. What do you need, Kevin, as my man? What do you need? What is your love language? I can bring we're gonna study this book together. We're gonna be intentionally come to this thing together and do this together so that we can make sure that we are happy. If you need me to tell you whatever, I'm gonna do it. Okay, because that's what you need. You understand what I'm saying? I'm setting the intention. If you need me to tell you whatever you need me to tell you, baby, I'm gonna tell you because I love you. Right.
Yes.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
That right there. That can believe me. That's gonna go a long way.
I recommend,
Right.
I recommend that you test out the love languages on yourself first, so you could
Right.
discover
Right.
what those love
What you
languages
like.
are. Yeah,
Mhm.
what you like. So, Dr. Shaw.
So I'm going to touch and agree with my sister BJ that this beautiful platform we're on. Before I say I do, you need to know what you want, who you are. You need to become 100% whole before you say I do. Before you're available to share. And we hope that this platform will allow you the opportunity to learn that. What are you going to offer before you say I do?
Beautiful.
Yes, yes, awesome.
All right.
Kevin,
Basically, let me tell you, there are a lot of men out here in pain, and a lot of times they're looking to be medicated. That's why a lot of times they use sex and drugs and whatever else they can use to medicate that pain. Because let me tell you, we are masters at hiding our pain, or at least trying to hide it. And just like what BJ said, we as men, we need so much. We need the kind of deep penetrating affection and love that can reach down into who we are and begin to ease that pain. Because I'm telling you, when you have a man who's not walking in pain, you really got something. And that's most of the time what women want. They want a whole man, not a broken man, not a part of a man. And a lot of times, a lot of women try to piece them together. She's trying to salvage what's left of a broken man. And that's why a lot of times she ends up frustrated and hurt and going through all of these hassles because she's trying to piece together a man. Well, we have to start building whole men and keeping those men whole until they reach adulthood. So we have adult men for adult women, and we don't have to deal with this madness anymore. And it'd be just as simple as Marty always says it is. So
simple. I'm going to read to you an excerpt from the Sweetheart Before I Say I Do book, but I'm going to read you the 5 love languages first. Words of affirmation, quality time, acts of service, physical touch, and receiving gifts. So here's the summary of the book. The love relationship is complex in and of itself. Not knowing who you are and what you need out of the love relationship complicates things even more. It's all about asking the right questions, first of yourself and then of your partner, to ensure you and your partner, you are partnering with someone who has the ability to weather any storm with you and survive. To change your outcomes, you must be willing to change the behavior that produces them. Most people struggle to enjoy life because they don't want to look in the mirror, face their issues, and do what it takes to overcome them. Then you want to invite someone into all of your dysfunction, mess them up too. You must first love yourself. When you truly embrace love all of you, healing begins to blossom in your soul. You begin to become whole, and true happiness emerges. Healthy self-love must start at home with you. When you love yourself, you will confront your own shortcomings and want to be a better person, and would never want to offer your lover anything less than what you yourself deserve. Sweetheart, before I say I do, we're out.